Hello. Today's presentation will address using sources in order to support a thesis. Here's our thesis that takes a stance. Though some would argue that house rules should be relaxed during quarantine, children should not be allowed to play basketball in the house because doing so may distract those who must work from home, can lead to property damage and injury, and will undermine the structure that children need in their lives. To support this thesis, we will need to draw upon evidence and expert opinion. The material we choose must be specific. Actual people and events, statistics, numbers, and dates. We want to show rather than tell. In other words, once we've made a point, we need to illustrate that point with a specific example, not simply quote someone who repeats our general point. When we use evidence, we need to connect it to a source on our Works Cited page, and the next presentation will cover that. Finally, any evidence we include must be grammatically integrated into the sentence and logically integrated into the paragraph, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So here's our source. Mom always says, "Don't play ball in the house." We have a signal phrase, Mom always says, and we have a quotation. So how effective is this source use? An effective signal phrase is grammatically constructed and varies in structure, placement, and verb choice. We want a smooth flow from our own point into what the source is saying, and we don't want it to sound choppy. So we need to provide some variety in how we set up a quotation. An effective signal phrase also establishes the source's credibility and uses the most relevant information to do so. So, for example, describing the author's profession would probably provide credibility. Including the title of the article doesn't do a lot to establish credibility in most cases. In terms of style, our signal phrases are constructed in the present tense. So we say that an author argues, not argued. And the first time we introduce the source, we're going to use the author's first and last name in that signal phrase. If we quote the same source again later in our essay, we're going to refer to the author by last name only. And you can find more details on this kind of structure in a pocket style manual. So let's look at some variations of our basic quotation. According to Mom, the acknowledged authority on house rules, one should never play ball in the house. Okay, now we've added something to call to the source's credibility. Making a compelling case for safety, Mom instructs, "Don't play ball in the house." Now we're providing context for the quotation, why Mom said this in the first place. Even when under quarantine, one should not, as Mom always says, play ball in the house. Now we are applying the quotation to our own argument, so we have an integrated quotation. The method you choose will depend on the point you are trying to make and where this detail is placed within your argument. So again, how effective is this quotation? Well, it is grammatically constructed. Mom always says, "Don't play ball in the house." It makes grammatical sense. Is Carol Brady, the author of our quotation, an authority? Well, she is an authority figure within the Brady household. But we don't want to appeal solely to authority, to believe something simply because an important person said so. To do this is a logical fallacy. A better approach is to include details about the person's experience or knowledge which establish the source's credibility. Finally, the quotation isn't overly specific, and this is where it becomes clear that we need to set up the quotation and provide follow-up in order to make a truly convincing point. We refer to the setup and follow-up as a quotation sandwich. Here is a paragraph that sandwiches the quotation and then introduces another quotation. Though many would argue that difficult times warrant a more relaxed approach to discipline, Carol Brady, mother of 3 very lovely girls, favors a consistent approach. Her primary rule, don't play ball in the house, not only ensures the safety of all family members, but also provides assurance that some things, like house rules, can be depended upon, even in times of turmoil. Indeed, psychologist Jeffrey Brownstein argues that consistency, while exhausting in the short term, saves parental energy over time because children learn expectations and require fewer reminders and consequences. Here we have context for Carol Brady's quotation, as well as a follow-up point that makes it clear to the reader why she is being quoted and what makes her point relevant. Then, we move on to a second source that further supports the point of the paragraph. Bringing multiple sources together is called synthesis. An effective synthesis paragraph demonstrates command of your source material and argument. Here are 2 examples of source use from an MLA cited essay, Marie Javdani's Plata o Plomo, which you will find in your Brief Bedford Reader. As Gonzalo Sanchez explains it, plata o plomo is literally translated as silver or lead and means that one can either take the money, drug money, bribe money, and so on, or take the bullet. So we have a clear signal phrase, and while I would personally like to see who Gonzalo Sanchez is or what his authority is in this situation, it's a grammatically constructed clean signal phrase that introduces a paraphrased point. And here's another one. According to the humanitarian organization Human Rights Watch, U.S. aid money has helped fund, supply, and train Colombian military units that maintain close alliances with paramilitary groups. So we have, again, we've cited an organization this time, and we've identified them as a human rights organization. And then our signal phrase is from an unauthored source. So Human Rights Watch was not the author. But again, that keyed system will be discussed in another presentation. So to sum up, be specific, show, don't tell, pay attention to your grammar, quote sparingly, paraphrase as much as possible, use signal phrases to help your reader see where a sourced idea begins, to establish the authority or credibility of that source, and to provide transitions from your point into the evidence. Follow up and explain your points and your evidence. And synthesize to bring sources together in support of your point. I hope this has been helpful to you. Please forgive the lack of hanging indentations on this works cited list, as PowerPoint does not cooperate with that formatting, but you'll hear more about works cited format in our next tutorial. Good luck with your signature assignment, and we will talk to you soon.